They say you can tell when something's wrong the moment you step through the front door, that your body registers it before your brain catches up. I never put much stock in that until the day it happened to me. It was a Thursday afternoon. I wasn't supposed to be home until late Friday. Business trip to Austin, 3 days, 2 nights, 1 conference presentation. That morning, the final meeting had been canceled last minute. I figured I'd hop an earlier flight and surprise my wife, Kelsey. Maybe take her out to dinner. She'd been talking about this new Thai place downtown. Thought maybe she'd like that. The house was quiet when I stepped inside. Still. Almost too still. I set my suitcase down gently by the coat rack, the wheels thudding lightly against the floor. I didn't call out right away. Didn't announce I was home. There was something about the silence that stopped me cold. My eyes scanned the living room. That's when I saw them. 2 plates on the coffee table. One with the crust of garlic bread still resting on it. A glass of red wine, half full. A second identical one, now just a ring of residue. My heart ticked once. Then again. There were smudges on the side of the wine glass, fingerprints not mine. A fork out of place. I moved toward the kitchen slowly, like I was trying not to wake something dangerous. The trash can was overflowing. I pushed down on the pedal and the lid popped open. It took less than a second for my eyes to lock onto it, a condom wrapper. Used. Torn foil. Stained tissue. There it was. My breath caught in my throat, but I didn't make a sound. Not yet. I didn't need to. I walked up the stairs like I was in a daze, every creak underfoot echoing louder than the last. Our bedroom door was half open. Nothing seemed amiss. Until I noticed the closet door slightly ajar. That was odd. Kelsey always closed it. Always. I crossed the hall to the bathroom. The door was wide open. That was when the smell hit me. Not bad, just unfamiliar. A man's cologne. Musky, woody, foreign. My stomach turned. Then I saw the toothbrush. Blue and white. A brand I'd never used. Next to mine in the holder. Next to Kelsey's. That's when I knew. Not suspected. Not feared. Knew. She was cheating. I didn't scream. Didn't punch walls or flip furniture. I walked back into the bedroom, pulled the suitcase I had just brought in from the hall, laid it on the bed, and started packing again. My movements were slow. Deliberate. Every folded shirt was a nail in the coffin of my trust. Every zipped pouch a goodbye whispered without sound. I had just zipped it up when I heard the front door unlock. Edward. Her voice called. Are you home? I didn't respond. I didn't need to. A few seconds later, she came up the stairs, a grocery bag in each hand, and stopped when she saw me. She blinked. Then smiled, a nervous, twitchy kind of smile. You're back early, she said. Her tone was light, rehearsed. You should have called. I would have. Her eyes dropped to the suitcase on the bed. What's going on? She asked, her voice rising just slightly. I didn't answer right away. I just picked up the suitcase and stepped around her. Her perfume floral, sharp, mixed with that lingering scent of someone else. I felt sick. Kelsey, I said, turning at the door. My voice was calm, too calm. Whose toothbrush is that? She blinked again. What? In the bathroom. She tilted her head. Oh, that? It sits for guests. You know, just in case. I nodded slowly, then met her eyes. And the condom wrapper in the trash? Her face didn't drop. It didn't melt into guilt. She laughed. No, actually laughed. You're being ridiculous, she said, brushing past me. That's probably from when Becca visited. Remember? A few weeks ago? She brought her boyfriend. I didn't respond. My silence stretched. That's what this is, she scoffed. You come home a day early and suddenly I'm cheating on you? That's insane, Edward. I set the suitcase down by the stairs. And the cologne? I asked. She shrugged. What cologne? I stared at her. My eyes said what my words couldn't. She rolled hers. God, you're acting crazy. Are you seriously going to throw our marriage away over some wine glasses and trash? Are you seriously going to lie to my face? I said. She froze. I continued. Do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I haven't noticed the late nights? The changed passwords? The missed calls and half-truths? I just didn't want to believe it, Kelsey. But I do now. The grocery bags were still in her hands. Slowly, she set them down. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there, arms at her sides, lips slightly parted. I picked up my suitcase again and turned toward the front door. Where are you going? She called after me. Anywhere but here. You're just going to walk out? I'm done, I said. I'm done pretending I don't see what's right in front of me. She followed me to the door, but didn't try to stop me. Her silence said more than anything else could have. As I stepped outside, the late afternoon sun hit me like a slap. I didn't know where I was going. All I knew was that I needed space. Space to think. Space to breathe. Space from the woman I no longer recognized. The motel room smelled like cheap lemon cleaner and stale air. The kind of place where people go when they want to disappear for a night, or when they've just had their entire life detonated without warning. I dropped my bag on the scuffed carpet and sank onto the bed, the mattress creaking under me like it was protesting my existence. The silence was deafening. No hum of the dishwasher. No soft music from Kelsey's favorite playlist. No sound of her laugh from the other room, the one I used to live for. Just a blinking red light on the smoke alarm above and the rhythmic thump of my own heart pounding in my ears. I stared at the ceiling and tried to figure out when it all started falling apart. Kelsey hadn't always been distant. There was a time when she'd wrap her arms around me while I cooked dinner, plant kisses on my back, steal bites from the cutting board. A time when she'd reach for my hand in the car just because. We'd lay in bed talking about dreams, kids, travel, business ideas, stupid things like opening a food truck someday. That version of her was gone, replaced by someone colder, someone always tired, always on edge. It hadn't happened overnight, but there were signs. Signs I didn't want to see. Started with her phone. She used to leave it anywhere, kitchen counter, coffee table, even in the bathroom when she showered. Then one day it was always in her hand. Then face down. Then locked. The passcode started changing more often. I asked once, playfully, changing jobs with the CIA? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Then there was the int asterisk Macy or lack of it. She said she was stressed. Work was overwhelming. That she didn't feel S asterisk XY. I told her it was okay, that I loved her regardless, that we could take it slow. But slow turned to nothing. She stopped kissing me goodnight, stopped hugging me goodbye, stopped looking at me like she used to. Still, I chalked it up to stress. We all go through seasons, right? But seasons don't make you lie. Then came the late nights, the team dinners, the last-minute weekend retreats. At first, I didn't question it. She was ambitious. She was building her name at the firm. I admired that. But then the stories started unraveling. She'd say she was at dinner with Sarah and Molly, then post a story of a cocktail from some rooftop bar that neither of them had ever mentioned. She once told me she was too tired to go out with me on a Friday night, only for a tagged photo to pop up of her at an art exhibit across town with people I didn't know. I asked her about it. She said I was being paranoid, that I was reading too much into things, that I didn't trust her. Maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't. But the real kicker? The night I picked up her dry cleaning for her, just to be nice. One of the receipts had a date on it for a dress she never wore in front of me. A dress I'd never seen. She claimed she had spilled wine on it at a work gala. But we hadn't been invited to any gala. Still, I convinced myself it didn't mean anything. I made excuses for her. Told myself I was overthinking. Because if I stopped giving her the benefit of the doubt, then I had to accept the truth. And I wasn't ready for that. Not then. Now, in the flickering light of a motel room that smelled like sadness, I didn't have the luxury of denial. I pulled out my phone and opened my photo album. Flipped through the pictures of our last vacation, Santa Fe, 5 months ago. I looked happy in the photos. Kelsey looked distracted. I hadn't seen it then, but now it jumped out at me like a billboard. In one picture, I had my arm around her. She was leaning away, her smile tight. In another, she was checking her phone while I was trying to capture the sunset. How had I missed it? I thought back to the conversations we'd had. How she always seemed more interested in what was happening on her screen than the words coming out of my mouth. The quick dismissals. The forced laughter. The way she'd check the time during dinner like she had somewhere better to be. Maybe she did. The pain hit me in waves. Not just because of what she'd done, but because of what I let myself ignore. I had bent over backward to justify everything. Because admitting she didn't love me anymore felt like admitting I wasn't enough. That was the hardest part. I stood up and paced the room. My chest felt like it was being crushed by invisible hands. I didn't know how to fix this. Hell, I didn't even know if I wanted to. Trust wasn't a switch you could flip back on. Once broken, it didn't glue itself back together. Cracked, and even if you managed to tape it, the scars stayed. I stopped in front of the mirror. Looked at myself. Really looked. I looked tired, like someone who had given more than he had and gotten nothing back. A shell of the man I used to be. But somewhere behind the dark circles and clenched jaw, I saw someone else. Someone who was finally done lying to himself. I grabbed my phone again. Opened the GPS app one hadn't touched in over a year. It was still linked to Kelsey's phone. Leftover from a time we used it to share locations when traveling. I had forgotten all about it. When her dot lit up on the screen, my heart skipped. She wasn't home. She wasn't at work. She wasn't anywhere she was supposed to be. She was across town, near the marina. A luxury apartment complex. My hands trembled as I stared at the blinking icon on the screen. My mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. Was she there alone? Was he there with her? I didn't know, but I needed to find out. Not for closure, for clarity. The drive across the city felt like a fever dream. My knuckles were white around the steering wheel, the GPS softly guiding me to a destination I already knew I shouldn't go to. But I had to. I needed truth, not whispers, not suspicions. Cold, indisputable truth. It was the only thing that could make the madness in my head stop spinning. The address was easy enough to find. A modern high-rise with tinted glass windows and sleek stonework. A place that reeked of new money and hidden lives. I parked half a block away, tucked behind a row of SUVs, and K** led the engine. From my vantage point, I had a clear view of the lobby. The building looked sterile, designed for discretion. The kind of place where no one asked questions and the doorman always smiled without making eye contact. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. My leg bounced uncontrollably, and I could feel sweat gathering at my temples despite the air conditioning. Every sound outside startled me. A passing horn, a jogger's shoes hitting the pavement, a dog barking down the street. Then I saw her. Kelsey. She walked out of the lobby like she belonged there, like this wasn't her first time. Her heels clicked against the pavement in that confident way she always walked when she thought no one was watching. She looked good. Too good for a Thursday night. The navy blue dress she wore hugged her like it was tailored yesterday. I recognized it immediately. It was the dress I gave her last year for our anniversary. She never wore it around me, said it was too fancy for the places we went. But she wore it tonight, for someone else. My stomach twisted, but I didn't look away. A man followed a few steps behind her. Late 30s, maybe early 40s. Tall, clean-cut, expensive shoes. I didn't recognize him, but I didn't have to. I knew what he was. He caught up with her, placed his hand on the small of her back like he'd done it 100 times, and leaned in close. They laughed. She laughed. I had to grip the steering wheel just to stop myself from stepping out of the car. Then it happened. Right there on the sidewalk like it was nothing. He turned to her, said something, and she kissed him. Not a peck. Not something you'd mistake for friendly. It was slow. Familiar. Her hand rested on his chest the way it used to rest on mine. I watched it all, frozen. Numb. My mind tried to explain it away, but it couldn't. There were no mental gymnastics left. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't an emotional affair or a work friendship gone too far. This was betrayal. Naked and shameless. I pulled out my phone, my hands still trembling, and began recording. The lens zoomed just enough to get their faces. Her hand in his. The kiss. Them stepping into a sleek black sedan. Her fingers brushing his shoulder before the door shut. I kept recording until the car disappeared. And then I sat there. Alone. It was like watching someone die. Except the person who died was the version of her I'd believed in, the version I defended to everyone, even myself. She was gone. Or maybe she never existed to begin with. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in silence. The weight of everything. Every lie, every excuse, every late night, crashed down all at once. I sent the video to my email. Labeled the file, proof. I attached a few photos I'd snapped earlier. Ones of them walking hand in hand, his arm around her waist like he owned her. She didn't flinch once. She had looked happy. When I finally drove off, I didn't head back to the motel. I found a gas station, bought a bottle of water I never drank, and sat in the lot, headlights off, thinking. There were 1,000 questions I wanted to ask her, 1,000 things I wanted to yell, but none of them would change what I'd seen. When you catch someone in the act, there's no more negotiating with doubt. I scrolled through old texts as I sat there, the ones where she said she was staying late, the ones where she said she was out with friends, the photos of takeout containers on her desk she'd send me to prove she was working. It was all theater, and I'd been the audience. Worse, I'd been the fool. I thought about calling her, about confronting her over the phone, demanding an explanation. But I didn't. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of scrambling to cover it up, of lying one more time before I yanked the curtain down. No, I needed to do this the right way. Smart, strategic, the way she clearly had been doing for months. I opened the Notes app on my phone and began writing everything I remembered. Every red flag, every suspicious night, every location I could piece together. I added the name of the apartment complex, the timestamp on the video, even noted the make and model of the car they drove off in. This wasn't paranoia. This was a case file. The next morning, I made 2 calls. One to a divorce attorney whose number I'd saved but never thought I'd use. The second to a private investigator. I didn't tell either of them everything. Not yet, but I told them enough. I want to know who he is, I told the investigator. I want to know how long this has been going on, where they meet, who pays for what, everything. He didn't ask why. He didn't have to. His voice was calm, professional. You'll have a full report within a week, he said. That night, I went back to the motel, deleted her contact from my favorites, and uploaded the evidence to a private drive. I stared at the screen for a long time before shutting the laptop. It was done. I didn't know where the next chapter would take me, but I knew this one was over. You never expect betrayal to be so organized. I used to think affairs were messy, hasty, emotional, but the more I dug, the more I realized how calculated Kelsey had become. This wasn't spontaneous lust or midlife panic. It was a strategy. A slow, methodical exit that just happened to leave me in the rubble. The morning after I captured her kissing that man outside the apartment, I sat with my lawyer, a woman named Dana McClure, sharp as a razor and twice as fast. She didn't flinch when I told her about the affair. She only asked, "Do you have proof?" I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder labeled Truth. Photos, videos, timeline notes, GPS logs. Dana flipped through them without commentary, nodding to herself, tapping keys on her tablet. When did this start, roughly? At least 2 months ago, I said. Maybe longer. She looked up. That's long enough to build something. Property transfers. Financial cover-ups. You said you co-own the business. 50-50. Technically. Dana nodded slowly, then leaned back in her chair. We need to talk about protecting your assets. It hadn't even crossed my mind. In my head, this was about betrayal, love, trust. But Dana was talking money, business, future. She saw my hesitation and softened her voice. Edward, affairs are personal. Divorce isn't. It's math. It's leverage. If she's taking from your accounts or funneling assets, you need to know. And you need to stop it now. I gave her access to our business account records, and by the next day, she found the first crack in the wall. $8,000 transferred from our joint operating account to a card I'd never seen. Kelsey had created a side expense account for vendor payments. The payments went to a name I didn't recognize, Reeves Consulting. Small amounts at first, then larger. It totaled nearly $24,000 over 5 weeks. Reeves, that was his name. Jonathan Reeves, the man from the apartment building. A fake consultant. No website, no tax ID, no invoices, just transfers, masked under vague descriptions. Dana's team cross-checked the account and linked it to a personal bank in his name. Kelsey hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. She was siphoning off our shared livelihood to fund her escape plan. I stared at the records in disbelief. She was paying him? Or setting him up as a partner, Dana said. He might be positioning himself to take over her share. Maybe she plans to sell it to him under the table. I felt sick. That night, I hired a private investigator to follow Jonathan. His name was Malcolm. Ex-law enforcement. Quiet and efficient. He didn't talk much, which I appreciated. I handed him everything I had, photos, the Reeves account data, even the time-stamped map pins. Within 48 hours, he had pictures of Kelsey and Jonathan leaving a bank together. Another of them meeting with a real estate agent. They were planning something big. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I played the part of the oblivious husband perfectly. I answered her texts with polite, detached tones. Told her I was busy. Slept in the motel. Blamed it on needing space to work. She bought it. Or wanted to. The guilt she should have felt wasn't there. She sounded lighter. Happier. I was giving her rope. She didn't even see the noose. Meanwhile, Malcolm found more. Jonathan wasn't just a fake consultant, he had a trail. 2 previous businesses dissolved under suspicious circumstances. One ended in litigation. Fraud allegations, unpaid debts. He was a textbook con artist. And Kelsey had handed him the keys to our company. I sat in the motel one night with all of it spread before me. Photos, statements, call logs. Every piece of their lie dissected and cataloged. The part that stunned me wasn't how much they'd done. It was how easily they thought they'd get away with it. Kelsey wasn't just cheating on me. She was trying to erase me. Slowly. Quietly. Financially. But I wasn't going quietly. Dana drew up a financial freeze on the business account. Legally, we needed evidence of mismanagement, and I had it. Within 3 days, the order went through. Kelsey wouldn't know until her next transfer bounced. I had Malcolm deliver one last report. Jonathan had moved in with her temporarily. Clothes. Keys. A toothbrush in the cup beside hers. Just like mine used to be. It wasn't hard to guess what they were planning next. Probably sell her share of the company. Maybe even cash out retirement accounts. Liquidate what they could before I noticed. But I had noticed. And now I was watching. The trap was closing. And she hadn't even realized the floor was about to fall. You never expect betrayal to be so organized. I used to think affairs were messy. Hasty. Emotional. But the more I dug, the more I realized how calculated Kelsey had become. This wasn't spontaneous lust or midlife panic, it was a strategy. A slow, methodical exit that just happened to leave me in the rubble. The morning after I captured her kissing that man outside the apartment, I sat with my lawyer, a woman named Dana McClure. Sharp as a razor and twice as fast. She didn't flinch when I told her about the affair. She only asked, "Do you have proof?" I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder labeled Truth. Photos. Videos. Timeline notes. GPS logs. Dana flipped through them without commentary, nodding to herself, tapping keys on her tablet. When did this start, roughly? At least 2 months ago, I said. Maybe longer. She looked up. That's long enough to build something. Property transfers. Financial cover-ups. You said you co-own the business? 50-50. Technically. Dana nodded slowly, then leaned back in her chair. We need to talk about protecting your assets. It hadn't even crossed my mind. In my head, this was about betrayal, love, trust. But Dana was talking money. Business. Future. She saw my hesitation and softened her voice. Edward, affairs are personal. Divorce isn't. It's math. It's leverage. If she's taking from your accounts or funneling assets, you need to know. And you need to stop it now. I gave her access to our business account records, and by the next day, she found the first crack in the wall. $8,000 transferred from our joint operating account to a card I'd never seen. Kelsey had created a side expense account for vendor payments. The payments went to a name I didn't recognize, Reeves Consulting. Small amounts at first. Then larger. It totaled nearly $24,000 over 5 weeks. Reeves. That was his name. Jonathan Reeves. The man from the apartment building. A fake consultant. No website. No tax ID. No invoices. Just transfers masked under vague descriptions. Dana's team cross-checked the account and linked it to a personal bank in his name. Kelsey hadn't just betrayed me emotionally, she was siphoning off our shared livelihood to fund her escape plan. I stared at the records in disbelief. She was paying him? Or setting him up as a partner, Dana said. He might be positioning himself to take over her share. Maybe she plans to sell it to him under the table. I felt sick. That night, I hired a private investigator to follow Jonathan. His name was Malcolm. Ex-law enforcement. Quiet and efficient. He didn't talk much, which I appreciated. I handed him everything I had, photos, the Reeves account data, even the time-stamped map pins. Within 48 hours, he had pictures of Kelsey and Jonathan leaving a bank together. Another of them meeting with a real estate agent. They were planning something big. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I played the part of the oblivious husband perfectly. I answered her texts with polite, detached tones. Told her I was busy. Slept in the motel, blamed it on needing space to work. She bought it. Or wanted to. The guilt she should have felt wasn't there. She sounded lighter. Happier. I was giving her rope. She didn't even see the noose. Meanwhile, Malcolm found more. Jonathan wasn't just a fake consultant, he had a trail. 2 previous businesses dissolved under suspicious circumstances. One ended in litigation. Fraud allegations, unpaid debts. He was a textbook con artist. And Kelsey had handed him the keys to our company. I sat in the motel one night with all of it spread before me. Photos, statements, call logs. Every piece of their lie dissected and cataloged. The part that stunned me wasn't how much they'd done. It was how easily they thought they'd get away with it. Kelsey wasn't just cheating on me. She was trying to erase me. Slowly. Quietly. Financially. But I wasn't going quietly. Dana drew up a financial freeze on the business account. Legally, we needed evidence of mismanagement. And I had it. Within 3 days, the order went through. Kelsey wouldn't know until her next transfer bounced. I had Malcolm deliver one last report. Jonathan had moved in with her temporarily. Clothes, keys, a toothbrush in the cup beside hers. Just like mine used to be. It wasn't hard to guess what they were planning next. Probably sell her share of the company. Maybe even cash out retirement accounts. Liquidate what they could before I noticed. But I had noticed. And now I was watching. The trap was closing. And she hadn't even realized the floor was about to fall. It was a cloudless Thursday morning when Kelsey walked into the courtroom. I saw her before she saw me. Striding down the tiled hallway like someone who knew she'd already won. She wore a tailored ivory pantsuit, heels sharp enough to cut glass, and that same smug smile she used to flash during cocktail parties when she landed a big account. Beside her, Jonathan Reeves looked more nervous. He didn't dress like someone who belonged in court. Too many buttons undone, too much cologne, and a 5 o'clock shadow that suggested he cared more about charm than respectability. I recognized his watch. Kelsey had bought it. Probably with money from our company account. They walked in holding hands. I don't know why that surprised me, but it did. Dana leaned toward me as we sat at the respondents' table. She's feeling confident, she whispered. Let her. Kelsey's lawyer, a tall, angular man named Vincent Calder, shuffled a thick stack of documents. He looked like someone born to be litigious. Custom suit, tortoiseshell glasses, a mouth set in permanent condescension. He barely acknowledged me. Fine by me. I didn't need his respect. The judge entered and we all stood. I kept my eyes on the bench, not on Kelsey, not on Jonathan, not on the people in the gallery who had come to witness the slow-motion wreckage of our marriage. It was humiliating. Every detail of our life reduced to spreadsheets, court filings, and exhibit tags. But this wasn't about pride. This was about justice. Vincent made the first move. He laid out Kelsey's demands like they were already signed into law. Primary residence awarded to her, half of all business assets, spousal support for 3 years, and control of our joint vacation property in Big Bear. Kelsey sat beside him, nodding faintly, her gaze flicking to me like she expected me to crumble. Dana didn't blink. When it was our turn, she stood with the calm of someone who had already checked the scoreboard. Your Honor, she began. We submit that Ms. Lawson's request for equitable division is made in bad faith. Not only has she acted in breach of fiduciary duty as a business partner, but she has also committed financial fraud using joint assets to fund a relationship with an individual under active investigation for civil fraud. The courtroom murmured. Vincent stood to object. Speculative. Dana held up a sealed folder. Inside is documentation of unauthorized transfers from our client's company account to a fictitious consulting business. Additionally, we have GPS data, photographic evidence, email correspondence, and financial logs corroborating both personal and business misconduct. She handed it to the bailiff. My heart pounded, not out of fear, but anticipation. I had waited for this moment for weeks. No more guesswork. No more pretending. This was the drop. The judge flipped open the file. Page after page. He read slowly, quietly. The longer he read, the more the mood shifted. Vincent's confidence faltered. Kelsey leaned over, whispered something. He didn't respond. Jonathan squirmed in the back row like he was being grilled. The judge finally spoke. A freeze will be placed on all shared financial accounts, effective immediately. Ms. Lawson, you will be required to produce a full accounting of all transfers made from your business shares over the last 90 days. Kelsey's face drained of color. Her lawyer asked for a recess. The judge agreed. Outside the courtroom, Dana and I stood silently in the corridor. I watched as Kelsey and Vincent stepped into a conference room, slamming the door behind them. Jonathan didn't go with them. He stayed behind, hunched over on a bench, staring at his phone like it might rescue him. Your Honor saw through it, Dana said. That's step one. What's step two? I asked. She smiled. Exposure. When we reconvened, Vincent's tone had changed. No more arrogance. Just damage control. He asked for a delay to review the evidence and discuss potential settlements. Dana agreed but added a caveat: no access to shared accounts during the interim. The judge signed off. It was over. Not the divorce, not the fight, but the game they thought they were winning. Back in the hallway, Kelsey finally spoke to me. You didn't have to do this, she hissed. You could have just walked away. I turned calm. You didn't just cheat on me, Kelsey. You tried to rob me. You lied. You embezzled. And now you're shocked that it has consequences. She didn't answer. Jonathan approached, hand out like we were business associates. I think we should talk, he said. I stared at his hand, then at him. You'll talk to the authorities. I walked away. Dana followed, silent until we hit the parking lot. You handled that well. I exhaled. The tension in my shoulders didn't go away, but the fire in my chest started to cool. For the first time since it all began, I felt like I had taken something back. Not just the business. My dignity. The investigation into Jonathan Reeves moved faster than I expected. 2 weeks after the hearing, Dana forwarded me a report from the forensic accountant her firm hired. They traced every dollar funneled into Jonathan's fake consulting business. Multiple transfers, some from the company, others from our personal investment account, were tagged as strategic branding expenses. There was no branding, no strategy, just theft. When that file was handed to the judge, things escalated. A formal complaint was submitted to the district attorney's office. Within days, investigators subpoenaed Jonathan's financial records. His house of cards collapsed. It turned out Jonathan had done this before twice. Once in Nevada, once in Arizona. Both times it ended with civil suits and settlements that never fully paid out. Kelsey had either known or chosen not to know. This time, though, it wasn't a slap on the wrist. This time, there were wire fraud allegations. Bank fraud. Misappropriation of corporate funds. When he tried to leave the courthouse mid-hearing, security stopped him. Kelsey stood frozen as he was led away. Her expression was unreadable. Not angry. Not devastated. Just hollow. She didn't look at me. Didn't say a word. Maybe she finally understood what she gambled and lost. Jonathan's contracts were terminated by the firms he freelanced for. His accounts were frozen. His name, once shiny and charming, was now associated with felony charges. Every bridge he'd built burned in an instant. And Kelsey? Her lawyer withdrew from the case the following week. I heard she tried to hire another, but no one wanted to touch it. Too messy. Too public. Too obviously doomed. It was a Wednesday afternoon when she showed up at my door. Not the house we shared. I'd moved out 2 months earlier. This was a new place. New walls. New locks. A space untouched by betrayal. She stood on the porch holding nothing. No suitcase. No makeup. Her clothes hung on her like she hadn't eaten in days. Edward, she said, barely above a whisper. I didn't open the door. What do you want? I don't know anymore, she said, blinking back tears. I just needed to see you. I waited. I lost everything, she said, voice cracking. The business, the money, him. Her eyes searched mine. For sympathy, maybe. Or just recognition. You left me with nothing. No, I said. You did that to yourself. She didn't argue. She just stood there, defeated. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sure you are, I said. But this isn't the part where I take you back. She nodded slowly, like she'd already known that but needed to hear it out loud. I never stopped loving you, she said. I closed the door. Not out of spite. Out of peace. There was no fight left. No yelling. No revenge. Just silence. The clean, heavy kind that meant the story was over. In the weeks that followed, the court finalized everything. I kept the business. The house. My name. She kept what she'd chosen, nothing. I didn't gloat. Didn't post cryptic quotes online or air dirty laundry. I just moved on. Quietly. And it felt good. Better than I expected. I saw a therapist. Took trips by myself. Sat at coffee shops with no one to check in with. I found parts of me I'd forgotten. I made new friends. I rebuilt trust not in someone else, but in myself. Kelsey never reached out again. Jonathan, as far as I know, took a plea deal. And me? I'm still standing. Not bitter. Not broken. Just free.